Metal shrieked against wood, glass burst outward like shattered ice, steam rose from the crushed hood as Ben Carson slowed his pickup along the quiet stretch of Route 12. The road was empty, wrapped in pale dawn light and drifting mist. Inside the wreckage, a woman lay unconscious. Designer heels were scattered across broken glass. Blood pooled beneath strands of platinum blonde hair that shimmered faintly in the morning gray. Ben didn't hesitate. He wrenched open the twisted door with raw force, ignoring the heat and the sharp edges, then carefully lifted her limp body into his arms. His 8-year-old son, Noah, watched wide-eyed from the passenger seat of their worn-out pickup truck as his father carried the stranger away from the smoking vehicle. The ambulance arrived 12 minutes later. Ben waited only long enough to make sure the paramedics had her stable. Then, without giving his name or number, he stepped back into the misty Pennsylvania morning and drove away. The only thing he left behind was a worn wooden pencil that had slipped unnoticed from his jacket pocket and landed softly on the hospital blanket beside her hand. What Ben didn't know was that he had just saved Alexandra Whitmore, heir to a $3 billion art empire. And what Alexandra would never understand was why her rescuer had vanished without asking for a single thing in return. 2 years earlier, cancer had taken Linda Carson, leaving Ben alone to raise Noah in their small house on Maple Street in Millbrook. In a town where news traveled faster than the morning paper, everyone knew their story. Mrs. Patterson next door still brought casseroles twice a week. She claimed it was kindness. In truth, it was her quiet way of making sure the widower who worked 16-hour days at his one-man auto repair shop was still holding himself together. Ben appreciated it, but he had learned to survive without depending on anyone. He had to. Noah was watching. Every day, the boy absorbed silent lessons about resilience, about how to carry grief without letting it define you. The garage behind their house had become both sanctuary and lifeline. Ben repaired everything from rusted farm trucks to luxury imports abandoned by less patient mechanics. His calloused hands brought engines back to life with a kind of quiet magic. After school, Noah would sit in the corner with his sketchbook, drawing with that same worn wooden pencil, the one his mother once used for her small paintings. He rarely talked about his art, but Ben noticed something that made his chest ache. Every drawing showed families, complete families, mothers and fathers and children standing together the way they used to. Linda's presence lingered everywhere. Her coffee mug still rested in the cabinet. Her gardening tools hung neatly in the shed. The oak tree in the backyard still bore the initials she had carved during their first summer in the house, back when the future had felt endliness, and cancer had been a word that belonged to someone else. Ben had taught Noah something important early on. Grief isn't something you conquer, it's something you carry. Like love, only heavier. Money was always tight. The upcoming school fees pressed heavily on Ben's mind. Being a single father meant living one emergency away from disaster. Still, he refused charity. Pride. Linda used to tease him gently. Now her smile existed only in photographs and in the way Noah's eyes crinkled when he laughed. That morning, as Ben drove his son to school, neither of them could have imagined their quiet world was about to collide with unimaginable wealth. The woman he had pulled from the Bentley was already determined to return to Millbrook, driven by a curiosity she couldn't explain, and a debt she couldn't measure. Alexandra Whitmore had built her empire on acquiring priceless art, but she had never encountered anything as rare as a man who expected nothing in return. The weeks after the accident blurred in her memory. Board meetings in Manhattan glass towers felt hollow after she had stared death in the face on a deserted Pennsylvania road. She found herself drifting during conferences, thinking about rough hands that had lifted her to safety, a broken bar, about kind eyes that had asked for nothing. The worn wooden pencil now rested on her desk like a talisman, a proof that authentic goodness still existed in a world that felt increasingly transactional. She hired a private investigator. Watson was discreet and thorough. His report arrived on a Tuesday. Ben Carson, 34, widower, owner of Carson Auto Repair in Millbrook. One son, Noah, 8 years old. No criminal record. No major debts beyond the ordinary struggles of small-town life. Ordinary decency. Alexandra studied surveillance photos. Watson included a Ben working beneath a raised hood, Noah nearby with his sketchbook. They looked grounded, real, untouched by the artificial layers of privilege she had grown up inside. The plan formed slowly. She couldn't show up as Alexandra Whitmore. The name alone would distort everything, create obligation, gratitude, imbalance, so she would become someone else. Ollie Mitchell, just a woman passing through town, nothing more dangerous than a stranger needing car repairs. She practiced the transformation inside her Manhattan penthouse, stripping away privilege like expensive fabric. She rented a modest apartment an hour from Millbrook, bought second-hand clothes, learned to apply her own makeup without stylists, studied how ordinary people spoke about money and work. The woman who emerged looked nothing like the CEO on magazine covers, and that was the point. When Ollie Mitchell's rented Honda Civic pulled into Carson Auto Repair on a crisp autumn morning, Ben barely looked up from the transmission he was rebuilding. Customers were customers, but something about her made him pause. Maybe it was the way she seemed uncomfortable asking for help. Maybe it was how she studied Noah's crayon drawings taped to the wall, examining them with surprising intensity. She explained her car was making strange noises. Ben quoted a fair price for diagnostics. Relief washed across her face in a way that didn't match her polished accent. She clutched her purse like someone counting every dollar. The problem turned out to be minor: a loose belt, 20 minutes of work, $37 total. She seemed almost surprised by the modest bill, then pleased. Noah wandered over, curious about the stranger who had complimented his drawings. Within minutes, something unexpected happened. Ollie knelt to his eye level. She listened, truly listened. She asked questions about color and composition. She pointed out techniques in his artwork that even Ben hadn't noticed. When Noah shyly revealed his most treasured possession, the wooden pencil his mother had used, Ollie's breath caught softly. Recognition flickered in her eyes. Over the following weeks, her car developed small, suspiciously frequent issues: a squeaky brake pad, a loose wire. Nothing expensive, just enough to return. Ben found himself looking forward to her visits. Ollie was easy to talk to, thoughtful, curious about everything. She asked more questions than she answered, as if studying the rhythm of small-town life. And slowly, quietly, without either of them realizing a broken bar, three very different worlds began to intertwine. Noah adored her instantly, completely, in that wholehearted way children sometimes give their trust to adults who treat them like equals instead of small, unfinished humans. Ollie began arriving with sketchbooks and high-quality pencils, always pretending they were for her own hobby. Somehow, they inevitably ended up in Noah's eager hands. She showed him how to shape light with graphite, how shadows could breathe life into flat paper, how a simple line could suggest movement and emotion. Under her guidance, his drawings changed. Crayons gave way to layered pencil work, his figures gained depth, his trees cast shadows, his families looked less imagined and more remembered. Ben watched from a distance, warmth blooming in his chest alongside something sharper: fear. Since Linda's death, Noah had been polite but withdrawn, as if grief had wrapped him in invisible insulation. Neighbors tried, teachers tried, but Allie unlocked something Ben had thought was gone forever: the curious, animated boy who once believed the world was full of hidden treasures. The transformation was beautiful and terrifying, because women like Ollie Mitchell did not stay in towns like Millbrook forever. As autumn deepened, her visits felt less like coincidence and more like ritual. She often arrived just as Noah stepped off the school bus, timing so perfect it felt almost rehearsed. She helped with homework, revealing knowledge that stretched from advanced math to art history to business theory. When Ben once mentioned the pressure of upcoming school fees, Ollie casually listed scholarship programs and small educational grants, describing application deadlines with suspicious precision for someone just passing through. Their first dinner together happened by accident. Ollie's car required more work than usual, keeping her at the garage past closing time. Ben offered to drive her back to her hotel, but she brushed it off, saying she'd grab a bite at the diner. Noah, with the fearless honesty of 8-year-olds, announced that his father made the best spaghetti in Pennsylvania, and that it would be rude not to invite their friend to stay. Ben agreed before caution could stop him. An hour later, they sat around his small kitchen table. For a moment, It felt dangerously normal. Ollie helped wash dishes afterward, studying framed photos on the wall, images of Linda laughing in the garden, of beach trips and birthday candles. She examined Linda's face closely, commenting softly on the love visible in every photograph. When Noah asked if she'd ever been married, Ollie hesitated. "Some people," she said quietly, "are meant for different kinds of love stories." Ben understood more than he wanted to. Winter settled over Millbrook like an old quilt, and somewhere between snowfall and shared coffee, Ben realized he was falling for her. She fit into their life too seamlessly, too easily. And yet, late at night, when the house grew quiet, something unsettled him. Her stories about her past were always polished but vague. She spoke of former jobs without naming companies, of family without describing faces. She asked about him constantly, but rarely allowed herself to be known. The first crack appeared on a Thursday in December. She was helping Noah shade a charcoal drawing when her phone rang. A tone Ben had never heard before. Classical, refined, expensive. Ollie answered automatically. Her voice changed. Gone was the relaxed warmth. In its place came authority, a crisp, commanding, accustomed to being obeyed. The call lasted less than 30 seconds, but Ben heard enough. Acquisitions, board meetings, New York, international travel. When she hung up, she looked shaken. The explanation came fast. Too fast. "A former employer," she said, persistent. "Corporate recruiters often tried to lure her back into art consulting." The story sounded rehearsed. Ben let it go for Noah's sake, but he added it to the growing pile of quiet questions. Christmas arrived with small-town brightness, twinkling lights reflecting off snow, cinnamon drifting through the holiday market. Ben would dreaded this season, their second without Linda. Ollie changed that. She helped Noah choose gifts, taught him how to wrap them neatly, made modest decorations feel abundant. On Christmas Eve, she gave Noah a gift that stole the air from the room. A professional-grade art set, tape pencils, charcoals, textured paper worthy of gallery studios. The price tag was gone, but Ben knew quality when he saw it. When he began to protest, Ollie gently stopped him. "Talent like his," she said softly, "deserves proper tools." Later that night, after Noah fell asleep surrounded by new supplies, Ben and Ollie sat quietly by the kitchen window, watching snow drift down in thick, silent waves. The air between them felt heavy with words unsaid. Ben almost asked her outright who she really was. Almost. Fear stopped him. The truth arrived anyway. On a freezing January evening, a knock shattered the fragile piece of dinner. Through frosted glass, Ben saw a sharply dressed man out of place in their neighborhood. He introduced himself as Watson, a private investigator. He showed Ben a photograph. Ollie, but not the Ollie they knew. This woman wore tailored suits, stood beside paintings worth more than Ben's lifetime earnings. Her posture radiated power. Watson spoke calmly. Ollie Mitchell was Alexandra Whitmore, CEO of the Whitmore Foundation, heir to one of America's largest art fortunes. She had disappeared from New York 6 months earlier after what was described as a personal crisis. Her family had been searching ever since. Each word landed like a hammer blow. It explained everything, and broke everything. When Watson left, Ben sat at the kitchen table staring at a business card. Manhattan felt like another planet. Upstairs, Noah worked on homework, unaware that his friend was not who she claimed to be. The confrontation came the next afternoon. Ben met her at the garage door, Watson's card held between them. Color drained from her face. For the first time, she had no words ready. Her explanation came in fragments. New York had suffocated her. Expectations felt like cages. When Ben saved her life and walked away without asking for anything, it had shaken her. She needed to understand that kind of goodness, to live near it, to feel human again. Ben's anger rose steadily as she spoke. Months of deception, carefully crafted lies. Noah burst into the garage just as Ben's restraint shattered. "What gave you the right," he demanded, "to treat our lives like an experiment?" Noah froze in the doorway, sensing the storm. Ben's voice turned sharp. "We were fine before you. We'll be fine after you. We don't need your money, or your pity." The words burned as they left him. Alexandra didn't argue. She knelt in front of Noah one last time. "You are the most talented artist I've ever met," she whispered. "Don't ever doubt that." She kissed his forehead. Then she left. The silence afterward felt heavier than grief. That night, Ben found Noah's latest drawing on the kitchen table, three figures under an oak tree. One figure had been erased so carefully only a faint outline remained. Weeks passed in slow, surgical healing. Ben buried himself in work. Noah drew with grim determination instead of joy. 3 weeks later, Ben made a decision. They packed essentials, left keys with Mrs. Patterson, drove away from Millbrook without ceremony. The new city was ordinary anonymous. Ben found steady work. Noah started at a new school. They rented a modest apartment above a deli. Life became simple, predictable, safe. Until March, the call came from school. Noah had collapsed in art class. At the hospital, medical words blurred into terror. Congenital heart defect, likely present since birth. Surgery was possible, urgent, expensive. Ben's insurance would barely scratch the surface. He sat in the sterile hallway calculating impossible numbers, trying to mortgage a future he wasn't sure they'd survive to see. And for the first time since leaving Millbrook a broken bar, Ben felt truly helpless.